Welcome to the community call, May 9th. Today we're going to be focusing on product and protocol. Yeah, all right, let's do it. 5 after, let's get started, jump in. Today's agenda, we're going to be talking about some things that happened over the last couple of weeks. Some teams were away, traveling, doing some exciting things. Our Sarah Bax is going to be talking about consensus. Cory is going to give us a demo of some work that they were doing last week in California. And then we're going to move on to some new governance stuff. We've got a proposal, a discussion proposal from Evmos, and then we have a live voting going on currently. So, all right. Upcoming events. So hopefully this calendar is becoming rote by now. Next week, we're going to have Regen Ready News Hour on Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific time. The week after that, so 2 weeks from today, is going to be the Registry, Science, and Foundation Community Call. That is at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And then the schedule repeats itself with Regen Ready News Hour the following week, and then the Product and Protocol Community Call 4 weeks from today at the same time, same place. Awesome. Alrighty, upcoming events. There's a lot going on, around the world for our types of things, but the big one that we're focusing on is ReFi Summit is this month. That's gonna be May 24th and 25th. Obviously, some Regen Network people are gonna be there. If you're in the area, you should definitely check it out, swing by. All right, with that, let's jump right in. Sarah, you ready to talk about what you did in Austin, Texas a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, thanks for the lead up, Terry. So Regen Network was featured as one of the CoinDesk projects to watch at this year's consensus in Austin, Texas. So we had the privilege of being one of 19 projects, one of only 2 related to climate in the world, chosen for this honor. And I went to Austin in order to present on Friday morning on our behalf a quick 5 minutes about why Regen, why we use blockchain for climate change, the role of our registry and our eco credits. And we talked a little bit at the end of the presentation about some of our real world impact projects on the ground, ERA Brazil, Coalition Carbon Trust, a couple of city forest credits projects, the roots in Argentina for soil carbon. So it's a great opportunity for us to present in front of really the entire blockchain industry, not just the Cosmos industry. So big thanks to everyone who was there and connected with us at Consensus all week. We were really excited to be participating in the process. And the link I put in the chat here for anyone who is here live, if you go to about 8.5 minutes, we're the second presentation in the group that day, you can tune in to the real world 5 minutes of what in the world is Regen doing with blockchain to solve the climate crisis. So thanks, it was lots of fun.
What was the other project that got, that got the other climate project that got the recognition? Is that anybody that is in our community or?
No, it wasn't anybody in our community. I can't remember who they were, but I remember realizing that there were 2 of them at the time. There were only 7 projects that ultimately presented. Who's screen sharing, by the way? Just as a quick question. Oh, there we go.
Me.
Yeah, sorry. It was like showing you jumping around. But there were only 7 projects that presented that morning when we were presenting out of the 19 in total.
Oh, wow. Very cool. Awesome. Well, does anybody have any questions about that? Anybody else? Any thoughts before we move on? You had excellent boots, by the way. I know everybody said it, but those are pretty stellar. Really killing the game. Alrighty, thank you. Then we'll jump right into Cory's demo. Are you ready?
Yeah, and yeah, we can. You can stay on this slide for a second, and then I'll ask you to take it off so I can walk through some stuff. So a group of us over the past few weeks were gathered in Northern California, not just Regen Network team members, but also like some community members, specifically focused on convening a gathering around supporting a set of groups in the Amazon, represented by an organization called Amazon Sacred Headwaters Alliance. And with that, one of the things that we were doing together, in addition to having a lot of governance conversations around what is needed on the ground for these organizations, was also prototyping and thinking about what are ways in which should we do a carbon credit, biodiversity credit, other kind of payment for ecosystem services or crediting project with this organization or alliance of indigenous communities. What might some of that work actually look like on the ground? So thankfully, it wasn't just myself or folks from Regen Network who were there with technical literacy. We had, and I also see, I think he's on this call as well, Will Gardner from the Cambium team and from the RSI in the open team kind of ecosystem, as well as a few other folks from our kind of like broader community who were there at this gathering. And as a smaller group, we were able to get together, huddle, and try to prototype out some of what this may look like for a potential credit class with this organization. What resulted, and why I'm particularly excited about this, is it was actually the first time that we really, even with, we kind of threw some things on the wall and said, let's not be too prescriptive or take with too much seriousness the rigor with which we need to be defining all of our on-chain data sets and the details of our methodology or the batch metadata or the project level metadata in terms of what's actually stored in data that's anchored on chain. But if we were to just throw out some ideas around it, what does it look like to bring something from start to finish? And also, what are the different parts of our ecosystem that we can be connecting together if we're doing that? So what we saw was, not just like what it looks like to design out some JSON documents that can be used as project metadata, credit class metadata, and batch metadata, and to see in the flesh how that stuff actually appears and looks on the Marketplace app. But we were also able to see if those data sets are pinned by a few different pinning services that are storing that data. What are ways in which we can then search for this anchored data, view some of these on-chain data elements, leveraging the design choices that we've made around RDF and storing stuff in a database that can use things like Sparkle queries. So that's a high level overview of what we're going to be walking through. And I think the demo should be pretty quick. It's mostly going to be a visual illustration of what I just talked about. Sari, if you could just turn on screen sharing. Okay. Can y'all see? I don't think people need to be able to read the fine print of these documents, but can folks see my screen okay?
Yeah.
So what we're looking at here is a Jupyter notebook that we started with for essentially mapping out what these data sets would look like in terms of on-chain anchored JSON metadata. We started with a project boundary that we received from one of the partners that we're working with representing this organization. They're specifically working, I think the community is called Shatamansa in Ecuador. And so here was an initial GeoJSON that we received from them. We then did a little bit of data cleaning where we wanted to reduce the amount of points in that polygon. So we used this library called Shapely, which basically gave us a much more smaller, compact GeoJSON kind of object that we could work with. That was a lot easier to kind of store and didn't have, if you look at this first one, someone really drew with a fine-grained pen or something, all of these points. And, for our purposes, we didn't feel like we needed that level of granularity. So we compressed the polygon a bit, as you can see here. And then we started defining, okay, for the credit class, how would we create and define sort of what this credit class looks like in a way that is leveraging what our Marketplace app is actually expecting in terms of metadata fields. So you can see we have a list of approved methodologies. We have a name for this credit class. We're calling it the Ancestral Jaguar Stewardship for Protection of Standing Forests. The reason is that, just in this context, we were trying to connect both a few different ideas of things that we've been exploring with other partners. One of them is this Jaguar credit that ERA Brazil is developing, that this group was particularly interested in adapting for their context and use case. And another was leveraging remote satellite imaging provided by Planet Labs to be able to do some verification that the forest within that boundary remains intact over time. You can see we did a similar data set for the project itself and for the batch. And then, here just straight in this Jupyter notebook, we're actually able to turn these data sets into canonicalized JSON LDs using this URDNA 2015 canonicalization algorithm and post it to an HTTP endpoint that is going to store this data set and respond with a Regen IRI, which is a content hash that we've kind of designed or defined the standard for. And that is what we'll be actually posting as the on-chain metadata. So here, after posting this to Cambium's pinning service, we've got that IRI. And then you can see we then also post it to Regen Registry's internal staging pinning service. And we're getting the same corresponding IRIs here. One for the project, one for the credit class, and one for the batch metadata. So now when you then go to our testnet view of the marketplace, you can actually see, because this was deployed, we deployed these live on Redwood, you can see that all rendering. There's no web interface where we were, manually editing a title. This is all pulling directly from those JSON data sets. So what's happening is the marketplace is querying, this credit class number, C57. It's then finding that content hash, and then it's looking up on the Regen Registry's staging server to retrieve the all of the actual JSON data corresponding with that content hash. And so you can see it populating here. You can see if we click into the actual Shadow Mensa pilot within this credit class, we're also getting a nice map rendering of that geolocation. And we're seeing that we actually issued some credits here, and you can view the credit batch as well. So this is the basic marketplace stuff that we have access to, but you may be thinking, okay, well, we also were putting in that raw project boundary. Is that visible somewhere as well? And another thing that we've been exploring related to this is this tool called YasGUI, which allows you to write Sparkle queries against a database. So for us, we're using Apache Gina. The Cambium team has spun up an indexer that is storing a bunch of data sets that they're aware of that are anchored on chain into an Apache Gina instance. And through this tool, we're able to basically store and save Sparkle queries that we can make against that database. And so here I'm writing a query for all projects where I think we called this credit class CXX just while we were testing around with it. So this is all CXX projects, and it's extracting the project boundary from them as this X variable, which then basically allows us to see it rendered here on this map. And with this tool, it's not just that you can write one query, but you can also save different queries. So we have another one for viewing the standing forest attestations. And if we go to the geo viewer of that as well, the way that we've chosen to render this, with a little more work, we would maybe want to render this as a polygon representing the planet satellite imagery tiles as well. But here what we've got is a point that when you click on, it'll actually render the planet images that are anchored on chain as well. And the last query that we ran was similarly, you could imagine a point in this plot where maybe there was a camera trap, and you could write a Sparkle query to connect that camera trap point with an actual image. And this was actually a photo that that pair, one of the individuals who was with us on this retreat, actually had a colleague of his take in this region when they spotted a jaguar. So he had it on his mobile phone, sent me the movie, and I just took a screenshot of it to throw in for this demo. So we were really excited about this work, not just for what it did for giving people more deeper understanding to how we could be applying Regen Network's tool set to this use case in the Ecuadorian Amazon. But also for me, it was just really wild and eye-opening to see this journey front to back of what it looks like to actually spin up a dummy kind of credit class with some monitoring data from scratch. And we're about to be, now that we've kind of returned back to the office and everyone's getting a bit settled into their normal work days again, we're going to be starting a process to try and solidify this into some nice like tutorials, guides, documentation, so that this is something that it's not just that we're doing internally, but that it's really clear and easy for any of our partners to just kind of lean in and copy and paste this Jupyter notebook, format it for their own use case, and play around with some of the tech stuff while they're in process, let's say, with the registry team, going through the program that we've set up on that side. So yeah, that's it.
That's super exciting. So is this level of project detail going to be available for all eco credits that are on the marketplace, or is it going to be kind of exclusively relegated to the projects that we're working directly with, like the? But I guess what I'm asking is, NCT, is that going to have details like this, or?
I don't
no?
think so.
That's fair.
And it's just, I mean, if there are projects that were part of NCT that we have relationships with, and they're wanting to give us a deeper, more granular level of access to data and want to work with us on how we might design it, sure. We have the technical capabilities to do this for the projects that we're working with NCT, but it would require us to be having like a deeper level of conversation with those actual project developers. So if that becomes part of our reality, then like, sure, we could be having those conversations. But I think where this is going to be an easier slot in is for the credit classes that we're calling like Regen registry native methodologies and credit classes, where we have that relationship and we're able to design how we want to be structuring this data from the ground up.
Very cool. Has there been any part of this project that's been particularly exciting? I mean, you kind of talked about the joys of this, but was there like one thing that you're like fell into place and you're like, fuck yes, this is awesome?
The Jaguar photo.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's totally legit. That's pretty beautiful that you're just like hanging out in person working on this, and they're like, do you want that data for this? Here you go. Here's a video of a Jaguar right in the spot. That's awesome. Does anybody else have any questions for Cory about this? This was a lot. Any thoughts, feedback?
Or if there's anything that Will wants to add as well. I just want to also give a big thanks to Will, because this was really like, definitely a joint effort between us and him representing Cambium and stuff to pull this all together. And really, I'll say that the Sparkle query side of it and that last bit with all the Geo Explorer stuff, that is the fruits of their work as a recipient of Regen's grant round last year. So, folks have heard about the different initiatives and results that have come out of that. The stuff that Cambium worked on was essentially that pinning service. And what we have, as a result of that work now is a pinning service that's live on Redwood, and the ability to play around with leveraging that for Sparkle queries and for exploring data in this way.
Cool. Awesome.
That's
Yeah,
very cool.
It was awesome to get to work on a project like that. Like Cory just said, that we could kind of think about the full stack methodology development, even though it was just kind of a straw man implementation, but being able to use these tools and kind of, envision the whole process. So I'm really glad I was able to collaborate on that, and really fun working with the team on everything.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. Thank you guys for sharing. All right, if we don't have anybody else, we will press forward. Okay, so voting. Yeah, right now we do have a proposal that is live. It is the last proposal necessary to go ahead and offset our validator footprint per proposal 21, where we committed to the Cosmos Zero initiative. This is just to purchase and retire the NCT. I think, Dan, did you put this one up? Do you have any words you'd like to add to this one? I think we actually ended up coming under budget on our original allocated amount of regen for NCT. Is that correct, or am I?
As far as under budget, I don't think so.
Oh no.
No, we were just waiting for the marketplace to launch.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And
It
then
wasn't like
yeah,
less
so
than
the
original.
first offset was city forest credits, and then this one is the NCT portion of that, which comprises about 80% of the carbon.
Yeah. Cool.
But it's passing and should be finished here in the next day or so.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. But yeah, voting ends on Thursday. So if you haven't voted on that one, go ahead and give it a vote. But yeah, this one, I mean, we would expect it to pass after proposal 21. I think the community is on board. Every other one has passed so far. So yeah, check that one out. And then last but not least, we've got Nemus from Stakecito talking about adding Evmos to the marketplace currency allow list.
Yeah, hey there, hey Sari, hey Regen community. It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, should I just quickly give a bit the background story, how we came to this? Yeah, right. So yeah, basically we proposed on Evmos to do their carbon offset for 2022 and in line with the Cosmos Zero campaign. And there was a proposal number 133 on Evmos, which successfully passed, I think roughly 2 months ago. And yeah, just to give a little bit background story about Evmos, maybe some of you are not familiar with Evmos. Evmos is a Cosmos chain. They do implement the Cosmos SDK, Tendermint/Comet BFT, as well as the EVM, which means they're interoperable with the Ethereum world, all the EVM chains, as well as the Cosmos world, which is really great, really cool, unique proposition in my opinion. And they were also one of the first to actually innovate in that area, bringing basically EVM applications and smart contracts to Cosmos. And yeah, we just, we are one of the validators, Stakecito, validating also on over 30 Cosmos chains, and yeah, been on Regen also for quite a while now. And yeah, we just saw a really good fit considering that Regen has also those partnerships with Celo and Polygon and so on. So we thought Evmos might be a really good place to actually also try to either kickstart refi over there or maybe sort of strengthen the relationship between Regen and Evmos. So yeah, now basically we also suggested to list Evmos on the Regen Marketplace as a currency as soon as the carbon offset proposal passed. And basically this is what we did now. The proposal is live on Commonwealth right now, so you can also reshare it here. And we are still trying. So Dan and myself, we're still trying to figure out the last final details in order to get us to testnet and then to mainnet. And hopefully this will happen within the next 1 or 2 days. And yeah, I don't know. Are there any questions? Did I miss anything? I just rushed through my speech here.
No worries. Thank you very much. Yeah, so the idea is that people will be able to buy and sell eco credits on the marketplace in Evmos tokens. I had a question and then I forgot it in my lead up. Maybe it'll come back to me. Anybody else have any?
Do you have a sense that there's an appetite from the Evmos community to be purchasing carbon offsets through the marketplace?
Yeah, a really good question. I would say yes. At least those people that are also building in the Evmos space are actually they do look forward to see carbon offsets coming to Evmos, be it either through Regen or other ways. And I think there are currently discussions going on how to make this actually happen, right? I don't know if someone else can tell you more. I feel like there's an appetite, but this is, yeah, it's like, I mean, I don't know what the percentage is, to be honest. It feels like people are actually want to see this as well.
Sure. Okay, great. Well, let's definitely communicate about how to bring Regen assets over to Evmos, as well as, of course, adding Evmos to the marketplace currency allow list.
Yeah, and I personally see it like sort of as a first step, and then I also saw some chats about something like region outposts and so on. I don't know all the details here, but it sounds exciting. So do look forward if there could be more collaborations and so on.
Cool. And thanks again for all your advocacy and your work helping to move some of these proposals forward. It's
Sure.
great.
No, sure. It's really fun. It's a pleasure to work with you guys as well.
What's
Yeah, and I can oh, go for it.
What's your thoughts on what's most appropriate for like an IBC path for these assets? Like whether, because it's going to have to be specific to either enabling Evmos coming directly from the Evmos network or Evmos being purchased on Osmosis, or not purchased on Osmosis, but Evmos coming from the Osmosis network.
Right. I think we had this discussion this morning in our own chat. So Fede actually said it should be native Evmos coming from the Evmos chain, right? But I personally don't have any preferences. I don't know like what is a better solution, to be honest, but it sounds reasonable to take native Evmos from Evmos instead of Evmos from Osmosis. Also, I don't think that the volume is like really high at the beginning using Evmos, so it builds up over time. So the Evmos chain has enough volume to cover this, I guess. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's a question of like where the users are who will be using this. So, like, ideally, like I feel like, and it would be great to see this a bit more in the Commonwealth proposal as well. Just some assessment of like what we see the demand to be of this. If there are people who actually want it, where are they, right? If they're Evmos users, then that's an argument for it being on the Evmos chain. If they're Osmosis traders who are just really long on Evmos, then that's an argument for us using the IBC path coming directly from Osmosis, right? So it really is about like where this demand is coming from and what kind of folks we see wanting to buy and sell in Evmos. I'm also curious, like, is there already an understanding of who would be listing carbon credits for sale on Evmos? I don't know if there's, like, at least I haven't been privy to any conversations internal to Regen about shifting some of our existing portfolio, but like, it would be great to know if there are commitments already from some organizations or entities to be putting up those sell orders once this goes live so that we actually have some inventory for sale leveraging this new currency. Because otherwise it may just like, this is kind of what we saw with Gravity. Like there wasn't anyone actually doing USDC Gravity, putting up the sell orders, even though it was technically allowed. And as a result, it's on the allow list, but no one's actually really transacting with it.
Yeah, I think those are all really great points. I don't have an answer right now to this. I need to think it myself, but I think we had those discussions internally as well in our offset group. Yeah, I don't know if Sarah or someone else has some opinions on this.
Yeah,
here.
we had that discussion in the offset group. I think that this is seen as an MVP of just, sort of next steps past Evmos offsetting proposal, inching a little bit forward is just the ability to buy credits on Regen Marketplace with Evmos while evaluating other pathways. We had conversationally committed to doing at least 2 small sell orders in Evmos from our portfolio, and then working with Evmos partners to see if they want to sort of like become more market makers on the marketplace in Evmos, but having something there so that when we do announce that the currency is live, there's at least a sell order for, I think it's the Rio Sim, which is NCT eligible, and just doing a small sell order of City Forest credits. Just at least a couple hundred credits just to get started so the Evmos community can start to interact and we can see where the opportunity goes from there.
And just to add clarity to the IBC path, Cory, for you, what makes this kind of easy is that similar to Axelar, if you're on Osmosis and you click withdraw, it's going to bring you directly to Axelar, the interface. It's the same thing with Evmos. So if you click withdraw on Osmosis, it brings you directly to to Evmos already. So the path is basically already set out for us, but this is, yeah, something that I brought up to Nemus this morning, the fact that we need to make sure that we know the correct IBC path, and logically it would be the native tokens from the Evmos chain. They have an interface and some bridge stuff there, so it makes the user experience pretty good for both just regular Evmos users and also Osmosis users.
Cool. Are there any other questions about this particular proposal? We said that this is going to go on-chain probably in the next couple of days, and then we've got a 7-day voting period. So we're probably a week and a half to 2 weeks before there would be any sell orders in Evmos on the marketplace, most likely. Does anybody have any other questions for Nemus here since he's joined us this morning? Okay, I want to take your silent as consent. We're close to the end of our agenda here, but I wanted to add one thing to our agenda, which does not have a slide, which is this link to Twitter. For Earth Day, Regen Network partnered with the squad at Stargaze. Shout out to Ruin for being so cool. And we did a sort of request for art throughout March and April, asking for folks from our ecosystem, Stargaze ecosystem, to offer up NFT collections that were on Earth themes for Earth Day, including some that had components like purchasing and retiring offset from Regen Marketplace to be carbon neutral NFT collections. So I shared sort of the announcement post that originally went out. But there are a number of collections, and we did a Twitter Spaces with Stargaze, which I'm sure you can find the recording of, that were part of this Earth Day drop on Stargaze, which we definitely recommend taking a look at. There were, looks like 6 in total that were part of this Earth Day drop. And this was sort of one of our first attempts to partner with Stargaze in a super light touch way. It was really more art curation into a drop. But there are now, you know, these collections that are out there. All of them are on Earth themes or are done by farmers, or they're folks that are validators in both ecosystems. One is from the Black Artists Foundation with Flow Labs, one of our validators. So there's some super cool NFT art out there. Hexterra is offsetting credits with Regen Network as people purchase and mint these NFTs, but definitely go to Stargaze and check out the Earth Day drop. It may be a little hidden in the collections now, but there is some really great art that our community and the Stargaze community put forth that we want to make sure everybody is aware of out there in the stars world. And just a shout out to Ruin. We did a shared happy hour with Nomic after the IBC Summit in Consensus on Friday. So it was just great to see so many of our IBC friends in the wild. Is the way I would describe the experience. And we're just really happy to be, you know, creating art and collaboration with our partners across the cosmos. So check out the cool art because it is like kind of awesome.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there any questions about the art? I mean, I think we could open up the conversation to see if there's just anything else that the community wants to talk about, because today's agenda was a little bit lighter than usual.
Mm-hmm.
Did you say you were putting a link to that? Oh yeah, the Twitter link. I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
Yeah,
Thanks.
the Twitter link talks about it. If you just go to stargaze.zone, I think it might be in the launch pad. Yeah, there's stuff in the launch pad. If you click that on there, like the refi hippies and the Saturn candy and the Earth Day plastic heroes, which is from our friends at Empower. It's part of their launch for Empower Chain, which is all about plastic pickup. And then there are a number of other collections that were dropped, which are, you know, some of them doing really well. So get yourself some cool nature art if you're a stars holder. Any topics of general conversation? Anybody got any anything they want to say, anything they want to check out, any topics that aren't on the agenda? It's definitely an opportunity for For folks to ad hoc engage, if there's anything anybody wants to bring up.
Hey, everybody. I was wondering about, as Cory, as you were walking everybody through the sort of data story and of the Jaguar credits, I was just thinking about the underpinning governance story of like who is responsible for data and the role that the group module interface may play in that. And it just, while we have a little bit of time, I was just thinking maybe a little update on where we're at with getting the, where that is at in the process of development.
I don't know if I'm fully grokking the connection between the groups module stuff and data, or maybe you could just reiterate that.
Well, no,
what's in your head?
the connection between the group module and minting. So, right, at each different moment, there's going to be different people sort of co-signing to lead to a minting process. So it's sort of, there's like the data story, and then there's the group module story to go through the process to produce a credit.
Yeah. I'd say that with the groups work, where we're at right now is we are leveraging the groups module for credit class administration for the TCO2 credit. So that's like, it is part of our, I guess you could say, like, way of working now, that every credit class that comes on chain will be at the very least administered and probably have an issuer address linked to a groups account. Now, the TCO2 one is a bit special because the actual issuance process, is one where it is held by a group account, but there is like delegated authority to the bridge service that we have running. So it's a very specific, operational approach that we're taking there. But with any of the other credit classes that we have soon coming on board, like, I presume that just will be part of the dialogue, that we'll be thinking about, how are we wanting to manage the issuance process from a multi-sig kind of perspective. To me, that is, in terms of functionality on chain, that's as good as there. Where it's not quite front facing for everyone else, and where I'm really excited for us to be, sharing more concrete updates on one of these calls in the next couple months, is in the group's UI work, where we've been actually building out, a basic interface where one can see the groups that one is a member of, groups that one is not a member of, and view sort of historical proposals and, voting actions of that in a more kind of like publicly easily viewable form. And that's stuff that, is well underway. We do have the groups UI, I'm not going to do a whole walkthrough of it, but I'll say that if folks are wanting to play around with it, it is available similarly to what we showed here with the marketplace connected to Redwood. We have a version of the groups UI connected to Redwood testnet that you can access at groups.regen.network if you're connected with Kepler. There's a lot of caveats to that. We haven't really done a lot of marketing around it since, it's still quite heavily in development. But, once we get to our defined goals around like an MVP for that, we'll be doing a lot of, more general comms and tutorials and such around the group's UI work. Does that speak to the things that you were wanting to open up about, Gregory?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
I was wondering real quickly if, and I don't know if you can grab this effectively, Sari, or if we need to quickly find it. I was wondering if we could maybe show some of the folks here on the call briefly what the user profiles on the marketplace look like when they're fully set up. We had kind of a demo a month ago from Cory about how to use user profiles. But I know at least in the Evmos use case, which is Evmos has come a couple times so far, they have a really nicely branded one for their carbon footprint offsetting. Do we have that link that we can maybe screen share it, Sari?
I do indeed.
Awesome. I just think it's just a great example of like what we can do with the user profiles. And
Definitely.
do you want to share maybe just a little bit about like the guides you're going to be making for user profiles, Sari, so we can start sort of like tooling the community on getting the user profiles up to speed?
I mean, user profile guides are going to be pretty basic. I would assume most people won't need to use them. The Interfaces team did a really good job of making this incredibly intuitive, like building your own portfolio. Yeah, and Cory did a demo on this a couple weeks ago as well that I'm sure we'll use as part of the guide stuff. But it's pretty easy. You sign into your wallet and you click on your portfolio, and then you can edit. You can upload an image. I don't know if I have any. Oh yeah, and crop it and add your name, and then you've got your own personalized profile. That's one that works. Oh,
that's super cool. What a great photo of you. Yeah, I think that this Evmos one is just a really great example from the Cosmos Zero campaign of just when it looks all together, which I think is a really fantastic approach, particularly for the protocols that are offsetting, so the community really knows it's theirs when they land here. Just quick question, I think that we discovered that, folks that are using the marketplace through just a single wallet Kepler signer can use these features, but that folks that were doing some of their offsetting with the multi-sig haven't been able to upgrade these features from the Cosmos Zero campaign. I was just wondering, Cory, if you could just help us briefly understand sort of like why that is, so that if folks are running into that use case of being multi-sig and not being able to edit their profile, they're prepared for that. And if we expect there to be like upgrades that help people be able to have that functionality.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's just something that's not going to be possible. The way that offline multi-sigs work is that it requires folks to actually coordinate signatures in like offline, aggregating them in Telegram chats and then broadcasting them together. And the way that we actually do the authentication here is through someone engaging with a Kepler signature. So, and then what's happening is you're associating one browser essentially with one account. But for these off-chain multi-sig accounts, it just kind of fractures that whole paradigm. You don't even have really one user whose computer you're trying to give authentication to. If there are groups or organizations who are wanting to have a nicer profile, who are wanting to do that for a wallet that is connected to one of these like legacy multi-sigs, then I think that there's a workaround where we can just be coordinating with them. They can be sending us assets and we can be working with our dev team to put stuff on, but it's not going to be something where we have like an end user facing product to meet that need, unfortunately.
Cool. Well, it sounds like there's a runaround for the Cosmos Zero folks, because there were at least a handful others that were trying to customize their profile with their, protocol branding. Evmos, wasn't in that situation, so theirs looks all pretty. Just for my own understanding and understanding of others, in the future, when the groups module is attached to these profiles, is that basically sort of like a solution that gets us to the point where there could be group processing, group decision making, and execution, as well as then a single signer associated with an account? So, is there the potential that some of these multi-sig execution accounts could be upgraded to a groups module account later and be like a little bit more user friendly for the end user?
So we're going to have conceptually the same set of design challenges or questions around the groups, but around usage of the groups module versus the older legacy multi-sigs. But the difference is groups module is the multi-sig of the future for us. And so it is what we are wanting to actually like invest in design and solutions for. And it is technically possible, since for groups, you actually do have known regen addresses for the corresponding members of the group. You don't actually have that for these older legacy multi-sigs. Every member of that legacy multi-sig doesn't have their own easily corresponding like regen address that we know ahead of time. Whereas with groups, we do have access to that information. It hasn't been built to satisfy that use case yet, but this is certainly something that I think we'll be like prioritizing once groups become a bit more widely adopted. for this kind of usage.
Cool. Well, it sounds like we can coordinate with some of the folks that are in this circumstance where they want to get their branding and just kind of source their name and their like little, you know, avatar pic and their background and just figure out a way to get them upgraded for them. So if anybody is out there from those proposals, we definitely will work to support those. And yeah, I think when groups modules come, it sounds like will be a lot easier with groups module integration. So that will be exciting when that day comes. We have 10 minutes left, but we don't have much more on the agenda. Is there anything else anybody wants to bring up or just like any general Regen questions? Oh, I see Timo's hand is up. A little Timo. I think that's you, Timo. Hi, Timo.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
Great.
Good. I had a question. Basin is building on Polygon right now, but we want to originate our credits or the underlying eco credits in the registry. And so I'm curious, Cory, you're on the call here, and I think Evmos, the question is around putting in each .basin token, which is a ERC 721 on Polygon, we can put any amount of ERC20, any combination of other 721s, any combination of ERC 1155s in there. And so with these NFTs, you basically can anchor, you know, any type of value or data around them. Assuming we're originating in Regen registry, we're looking at like deeds and property documents, titles, the polygons, you know, any kind of property data. So I'm wondering maybe like if anyone's seen any good use cases of how to convert those things to an 1155 or to a 721 so that like we're not duplicating efforts. So if we originate something like Cory, what you were demonstrating, like if we originate something in the registry, how can we also upload them in our, you know, over on Polygon, so that it's pinged back, right?
So the first thing that I'm thinking about in hearing this provocation is the way that we're approaching data is not data is a token, right? Within the context of Regen Network, we have entities like that can be administered, like credit classes and projects, which you understand. We have batches, which represent a set of fungible, like essentially like assets. You can think of it like an ERC20 or an 1155 in a way, but the data that is associated with any of those assets, whether it's deed information, whether it's monitoring reports, none of those are tokens in our model, because the way that we've thought about data is that it's about storing information and storing layers of trust signals against those different data sets, right? But there's no way in that model where you would have, let's say, a data that is owned by an individual. And the second that we're talking about tokens in the Polygon world, whether it's 721s, 1150, all of those at the end of the day are assets that are owned by someone, that is exposed to a market, right? That someone could list on OpenSea or someone could put in a liquidity pool. And I think that's where the core difference is. And that's also where the core challenge of interoperability comes from. The second that you're treating data as a token and you're saying that it has ownership now, what does it actually mean for that to move across different networks? You have to be thinking about tracking the ownership. You have to think about locking it up in your system or escrowing it, which is what traditional bridges will do, so that a derivative asset can be minted on another chain, et cetera. And if you're not dealing with this principle of like tokenized data, where you're representing asset ownership, but you're really just trying to store information, probably by storing a content hash on the blockchain and then having a mechanism by which you can look up that fuller data payload off chain, either on IPFS or through a centralized data storage provider. that's all. That then is bringing you much more into an arena where it would be easier to have interoperability conversations with Regen. So if you're thinking about ways to be navigating those kinds of questions, that's the first thing that I would say you should be folding into your framework as you're like evaluating architecture and design choices.
So the way each basin token is basically, it's a smart wallet. So it's like it owns whatever NFTs are in it.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's or it can, I'm thinking of it more in terms of like a pointing. So if we have the deed record from account, we're focused on the US. So if you have a deed record that you have minted into a NFT and you want to point to it. So it's like a verification, or like, you mentioned trust signal. So it's like each basin is a polygon of a property or a project or a stand of trees. And then it points to these other things that that token basically owns those things, or that's saying, hey, that's the trust mechanism of how, of where that data can be gathered. So I'm wondering how we could do that. Like if we wanted to just point to that deed, right? Or, put it on IPFS, maybe that's the best way. Can Regen use that?
So we can certainly be engaging with public data sets on IPFS, and we don't have all of the details of that figured out right now, but we do have some work streams where we're investigating how, when data is publicly available, we want to be ensuring that folks can register IPFS as a data storage solution for data sets that are attested to on Regen Network. I think the real like crux of what you should be ensuring you can be doing for these data sets to make sure that Regen is supporting it is using JSON LD and ensuring that it's not just a JSON object that doesn't have what's called a context field. Because when you have a context field, you're being more expressive in the way that you're describing what the actual like metadata fields mean, and doing that in a way which leverages linked data. That's what the LD in JSON LD stands for. And that's what all of the data stuff that we're working with in Regen kind of presupposes, that it has that as part of the picture. Yeah, ensuring that you're leaning a bit into not just like data sets
and
in
not
JSON,
just
but
us.
also JSON LD.
Not just us.
Not just us.
Hypercerts and other folks are also using JSON LD.
Okay, that answers my question. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Great.
Well, that was a fantastic question. Timo, I just sent you a Twitter DM. I think that maybe it's worth working through your whole use case with Cory one-on-one and just making sure we're not missing anything in your architecture, because I know you've been working on this for a while. I want to make sure everything is like connected well, and that we're taking advantage of all the opportunities across, Polygon and Regen Network equally, and exploring what opportunities might exist between the two.
Will you
Cool,
be
thank
in
you.
Seattle?
And yeah, I have plans to go. I need to book it, but I'm supposed to go. Great. So hopefully. One thing I did want to flag, if we still have just, I guess, 2 minutes, is I had a really nice conversation with Orr yesterday from the EBF. And so I think there's a big use case for that framework and what we're building. That we've been calling it the basin stack, but that came from the work we did fall 2021 around the core benefits label, or core benefits. Looking at all the different ecosystem services and how do you actually rank those for a climate project. But I just want to flag that the EBF is awesome, and I don't know who here is working on that. We're not in the activator yet, but hopefully we'll be next week, and excited to use those little icons and what's happening there.
Yeah, so just a brief note on EBF. So the original EBF iconography is derivative of some stuff that we contributed to the Regen 1 accelerator. And there's a bunch of Regen team members and community members in the various different accelerator streams. And I'm on the steering committee, although I'm usually too busy to go. So we're definitely big supporters as well of EBF, and like having that kind of standard, both iconography and just approach around the different, and for those of you who aren't aware, EBF is the ecological benefits framework, and it's an aim, the aim is to kind of create a modular and standard, both iconography and language to different types of ecological benefit that's based on a taxonomy. And for those of you on the call who remember, so that taxonomy is influenced or maybe even you could say derivative of the taxonomy that we gave into the process that Sophia created. So Sophia created an ecological practices to outcomes taxonomy. And that was one of the big sort of like taxonomic anchors for the EBF work.
And Gregory, what was the original project called? And one, is that online somewhere? Is that public, that Regen 1 or whatever?
It's Regen 1 food icons. Let me find it for you real quickly.
Like I've seen all the food icons on Lexicon, but I'm wondering, I'd like to see the data or like the project behind it.
You could probably Google Regen 1. They have all information about each of the accelerators. So it was the first sort of like Regen accelerator.
Yeah, and we helped to design some of these icons and definitely have contributed to our taxonomy. And then we're kind of all over the work streams, and Lexicon. This is one of the work streams out of the Blockchain for Climate Alliance, that sort of the outshoot of the blockchain infrastructure carbon offsetting working group. So join the club, Timo. We've definitely had some brief discussions about the use of these icons and taxonomy in the marketplace, and just sort of the ways that it might represent things much more quickly for users by having a universal language that's sort of like all across ReFi. Finally having a shared benefits taxonomy, I think, will make a lot of the like user decision making about what something actually is a lot easier to convey once it's implemented. And it's not announced yet, but one Regen project is featured in the case studies. They don't know yet, so I can't say who, but there is a special Regen registry created project that is getting a feature in like the 12 projects for the case studies for EBF.
Cool.
Well, squad, we're over time, and this was fun to ad hoc and ask open questions. So big thanks to Cory for the demo and for fielding all the random unanticipated questions. Thanks to Timo for your questions about your use case. Thanks to Nemus for coming and repping the proposal with Evmos. And we will see you all in 2 weeks for the registry and foundation oriented community call. Nice to see all of your faces across the interwebs, and enjoy the rest of your day, y'all. Ciao.
Bye, everybody.